Another job interview, this time, wow, nearly 8 years ago. Yeah, no video content this time. This was from the days before I videotaped anything, at least nothing new. It's my interview with the the United States State Department. This was my first real interview, you know, the kind with a suit, a tie, nice shoes, all that fancy getup. 6 hours, an exam, followed by another exam, and a final interview. All circling around a point system. A point system that I missed by 1 decimal point. So yeah, I didn't get the job. And ever since, never looked back. It came back to my memory recently as I got hit by an email stating that they're looking for people again. So if you want to apply, March 13th is the deadline. Maybe you can learn from my failed experience. Look, I mean, at some point I was intrigued by being stationed out in some isolated zone with the added benefit of danger pay and extra vacation. But now, seems like that time has gone and passed. What was it? Yeah, back then, that was when I was working nights installing network cabling in buildings. We'd crunch out a full week of work into a few days and have a 4-day weekend. It was great. It gave me time to fly to Washington, D.C. But man, our flights to D.C., expensive. This whole ordeal was expensive. And the State Department's not going to help you. You have to do it all out of your own pocket. So you fly to Baltimore International Airport. You take the bus to the MARC commuter train. You land in Union Station. You get on the Orange Metro line. Then you switch south onto the Green line. Till you get to your quote-unquote cheapest hotel in the DC area. Take a rest for the rest of the night. Hail a taxi first thing in the morning. Now you can probably get an Uber. You sit in this waiting room in the lobby of the US State Department. Everyone but me was headed for the Foreign Service Officer position. And at that, most of them were going for the second and third time. I was the single person that was applying for that Foreign Service Specialist position. It's kind of weird, especially considering that I was sitting around some people who had studied their entire college career to get to this point. And I'm not kidding about that. I was just looking for my first professional job. I just wanted to get out of the small town and start making some real money. That was it. I wanted money. Oh, and the travel kind of sounded cool. My name gets called out. I'm separated from the group. I go through security. You take nothing in there with you. Forget your cell phone. Forget anything you got in your pockets, your wallet, everything. You go through that metal detector. It's like going through an airport. And then you get escorted to a conference room and you sit there. You sit there for an hour. You wait and you wait and you wait. At least you're overlooking the city. And what a view. It was nice. But alas, it was time to take that written exam. How does that start? Some paper on a clipboard that I signed that said, I cannot tell you the questions that were asked, what I answered, or probably any of the juiciest info for anyone who's thinking about applying for this job. And because I signed that paper, I probably shouldn't. And I won't. It's not like this info isn't publicly being discussed on open forums. Your business if you go out and look for that. But I signed it, I respect it, and what you'll hear from me is for the most part in line with the info that the State Department has put out publicly. But I'll say this. At that time, my own focus as a professional was far more on pleasing leadership rather than making sure overall operations were in order. Hint? Maybe? Okay, so we followed that up by 2 multiple choice exams. Not much I can say about that, but don't sweat over it. They're actually not that difficult. At least I don't think so. Dragged over to the Chilean room, a room covered in photos of Chilean landscape. Cool. It's time for the in-person interview. and you will get drilled with questions. Rapid fire, under pressure, information overload. They're trying to push your buttons, but in general, just brush up on your generic interviewing skills. Bring a little bit of your technical expertise. I don't know if it's still that way, but in general, this is the point of the interview that's kind of like any other interview. You know, I can't tell you what they ask, but you know, typical interview questions. And once that's done, you sit in a waiting room. The guy next to me, it was the next guy up. Had a little chat with him. A man who had spent most of his life, as I recall, woodworking in Austria. Had an interesting story. Before I could even shake his hand and introduce myself, I was pulled into a room to inform me that my interview had been unsuccessful. Gizmo, do you have any questions that do not pertain to the State Department, this position, or related activities? What do you say to that? Nothing really. You just been told you can't ask questions. I asked, can I apply again? Of course they said, yeah, sure. At least in a more professional manner. They handed me a manila envelope and they escorted me out of the premises. So sitting out there, in my suit, with my tie, my nice shoes, I opened up the envelope. 1 decimal point. 1. It was a good effort. Took advantage. Toured the city. Washington, D.C. And get back on that green line, the orange line, the train, the bus, the plane, the car. Back home. Returning to work like I had never left it. Pulling cables within a building like any other night. And when the next invitation to interview came along, by that time, I had moved on. I started my master's. I mean, I could have gone. I bet someone interested enough would have figured out a way to go again. The truth is, though, I wasn't interested anymore. For the fun of it, yeah, sure. It would have been interesting enough to see if I could get that extra decimal point. But I do hope that hopefully this gives some people a little bit of insight into what you can expect when you apply as a foreign service specialist. And that's my second failed interview video. You can check out my failed Google phone interview. I didn't even make it to the in-person interview for that one. But, you know, if you're a little bit curious about at least the initial stage of the Google interview process, that might be interesting for you. And who knows, maybe at some point I will make a video on my, I guess, other interesting failed interview for the European Union's chemical agency. That might be interesting to some. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. If you like this type of video, I know it's a little bit different than typical content, but at this point, you don't know what you're getting. So just remember, if you did like this content, do hit that like button because it does help. If you disliked it, hit that like button anyway so you can make somebody else miserable. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed already so you can continue listening to me, because that's the best thing to do, right? Okay. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, forgot about it. No matter where you are in this world, you have a good day, a good night, and a good morning.